So get this, a new visitor from interstellar space just dropped into our solar system. Now, this is only the third one we've ever spotted. It's called 3I/Atlas, and one of the world's most brilliant astrophysicists is making a wild claim. It might not be a rock. It might be an alien spaceship. Okay, let's get into it.
So could that possibly be true? Do we actually have an alien probe cruising around out there between Mars and Jupiter right now? That is the huge question we are going to unpack here. And look, this isn't some conspiracy theory bubbling up from a dark corner of the internet. The person making this claim is a super respected, brilliant scientist. But the reaction from the rest of the astronomy world, well, let's just say scathing doesn't even begin to cover it. So what on earth is going on?
Here's how we're going to break this all down. We'll look at the scientists versus the community. Then we'll dig into the actual case for it being alien tech. After that, we'll explore the counterargument, that it's probably just a comet. We'll also talk about the bigger problem with using aliens as a scientific answer. And finally, we'll ask, is this just a courageous call that turned out to be wrong?
Okay, first things first. To really get what's happening, you have to understand the man who kicked this whole hornet's nest, Professor Avi Loeb.
Now, the most important thing to get about Avi Loeb is that he is not some nobody you can just write off. I mean, the man has published over 700 peer-reviewed papers. He did groundbreaking work on how the very first quasars formed in the universe. By literally any metric, he's a giant in his field. This is not some fringe character.
And yet, oh boy, the pushback from his peers has been absolutely brutal. Professor Chris Linton over at Oxford called his ideas nonsense on stilts. Others have called them ridiculous sensationalism. So you've got this incredible clash, a top-tier scientist making a truly extraordinary claim, and the rest of the scientific world pushing back and pushing back hard.
So what is Loeb actually seeing here? What makes him think there's a pretty good chance this thing is an alien ship? Let's dig into the actual substance of his argument.
Loeb's paper lays out about 9 different points, but you can really boil them all down to 3 main categories. First, he says its path, its trajectory, is just suspiciously convenient. Second, its speed is weird. And third, its size just doesn't make sense for a normal rock. Let's start with that trajectory.
Okay, this is the number that really got the media's attention and did a lot of the heavy lifting for this theory. Loeb's paper calculates that the odds of this random object just happening to swing by Mars, Jupiter, and Venus are only 1 in 20,000. And when you hear that, it sounds incredibly convincing, right? It feels like it hits some kind of impossible cosmic bullseye.
Then you've got the speed. And this is where things get a little confusing. See, with the first interstellar object, Oumuamua, Loeb argued that its slow speed was a sign it was alien tech. But now, with 3I/Atlas, he's arguing its high speed is the sign. And that apparent contradiction has definitely raised some eyebrows.
But of course, for every piece of evidence Loeb puts forward, the scientific community has a counter. And all of their arguments point to a much, much simpler explanation, that 3I/Atlas is just a comet.
Let's go back to that super dramatic 1 in 20,000 number. Well, statisticians will tell you this is a classic case of something called p-hacking. First off, it totally ignores the fact that our telescopes are pointed where the planets are, so of course we're more likely to find things there. Second, the choice of planets seems totally random. If he had just included Earth in the calculation instead of Venus, the probability jumps to 50%. Totally normal. The point is, you can cook up tiny probabilities for almost any normal event if you just pick and choose your data points.
But here's where the story gets really compelling, and it comes from Loeb himself. He basically said that if 3I/Atlas is a comet, it should have a small nucleus. If it's a giant rock, it would have to be over 20 kilometers wide, which is huge. So he drew a clear line in the sand. He said, and I'm quoting here, that the alien hypothesis would be dead if the nucleus was found to be smaller than 20 kilometers.
And this is just a perfect example of how science is supposed to work. A testable prediction was made. So what happened next? The Hubble Space Telescope pointed its lens at the object. And the result? It found a coma, that's the fuzzy cloud of gas and dust around a comet. And it found the nucleus was smaller than 5.6 kilometers. Way smaller. So by Loeb's own standard, the alien idea should have been put to rest right then and there.
This whole debate, though, it gets at something much deeper. It highlights the fundamental problem with ever using aliens as a scientific explanation for, well, anything.
It all boils down to this concept called unbounded explanatory capability. Basically, it's a theory that's so flexible it can explain any possible thing you observe. So after Hubble spotted that dusty coma, Loeb just suggested, oh, the spaceship must be deliberately spraying dust as a shield. You see the issue? The theory can never be proven wrong because any new piece of data can just be explained away with, well, the aliens must have wanted to do that.
Let me show you what I mean. Imagine I ask you, hey, why did that cup just fall off your table?
Or, what was that noise? What made the curtains move just now?
Or, hey, why are you feeling a little under the weather today?
The answer is always the same. Aliens, you see? A theory that can explain absolutely everything, in reality, predicts nothing at all. It's just a dead end for science.
So the evidence points to a comet. Is that the end of the story? Well, not quite. Because this whole thing raises a much bigger question about the role that provocative, maybe even wrong ideas play in science.
Let's be honest. Groupthink can be a really dangerous thing for science. You absolutely need people who are willing to challenge what everyone else believes. People willing to risk looking foolish in public. And even if Loeb is wrong about this one, he has undeniably changed the conversation. He's sparked all this new research into interstellar objects and forced a field that might have been a bit too conservative to take these ideas more seriously.
So when you look at all the evidence we have right now, the picture's pretty clear. You know that old saying, if it looks like a duck and quacks like a duck, it's probably a duck? Well, in this case, 3I/Atlas looks, acts, and sheds dust an awful lot like a comet.
But this whole wild ride leaves us with a really fascinating question to chew on. To really push the boundaries of what we know, what does science need more of? People who are conservatively right, making that slow, steady, careful progress? Or people who are courageously wrong, the ones who spark massive debates and open up new possibilities, even if they end up crashing and burning? It's something to think about, isn't it?